schedule with the rain coming through the area just a few moments ago, but the heavy stuff has cleared off. It leaves us with a damp racetrack. Sprinkles continue to fall as well, but GT America, powered by AWS, about to take to the track for the first time in race conditions here this weekend. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. It's DJ Clark down in the pits for us in the pit lane, where he is braving the weather conditions for us. And so before we go to Cal, let's get an update on those conditions down on the grid with DJ Clark.
Well, Ryan, it is raining, and I can officially confirm that this is going to be a very, very damp track for these drivers. They are going to be on the wet tires, and this is going to be a real test of skill for a lot of these folks. Look for more of the front-engine cars in this particular running to maybe have a little bit more. The inherent understeer of the car could be a little bit more stable and could lead them to know exactly what their car is going to do and avoid any twitchiness that they could be having in these wet conditions.
All right, stay dry down there, DJ. Thank you very much for the update. It is coming down still, but not nearly as heavily as it was maybe 30, 45 minutes ago, Calvin. It was a big storm that moved through the area, heavy lightning as well, which put us on a little bit of a hold and explains why we're a bit behind schedule. However, we'll try and make up a little bit of that schedule, because when the cars are released from the pit lane, the 40-minute race clock will begin. Race control has elected to start this race immediately and behind the safety car to give the cars a chance to test out the conditions, and when it's deemed safe to do so, we'll go racing here today.
Yeah, so essentially, as soon as we leave pit lane, that 40-minute clock will start to run. Just spoke to Brian Till, who's the race director here for GT America, and he said, well, basically, get a read from the safety car driver and the conditions, and may roll around here for a couple of laps before we actually go green flag race. I think the big concern for drivers in this sort of sudden downpour is, do you have good visibility? Is the wiper system working correctly? Is the defogging working? And then you just go about your business in terms of identifying where the really tricky parts of this racetrack. When you see the amount of rain that's falling, certainly going to be tricky, as DJ alluded to. All of the drivers will be on their toes, so to speak, but you see it's kind of flooded near the curbing. When you have any camber in the racetrack, it kind of collects there, and that's what you got to be really careful of, and obviously power down on those painted curbs as well coming off the corners.
Exactly so. Now, we talked about just how heavy the rain was, the lightning in the area too. That was just a little while ago, giving you some idea of the weather that came through. Right now, we're just looking at some sporadic raindrops, but the track is drenched. It's brought the temperature down on the track surface, only 75 degrees. Air temperature down quite a bit as well, just 68 degrees in the air at this stage. So that is the situation as the cars are on the grid getting ready to go. We're hoping to turn the cars loose and get that clock started in under a minute's time. But this will be a challenge. Look, this place is tough in the dry. Now you add the extra challenge of the wet weather, the wet paint on those curbs too. How much have you driven here in the wet, Cal, over the years?
Actually, I don't think I ever competed here in wet conditions, so it's very curious to see if what we call a traditional rain line, when you have a track that's kind of older surface and it's got that worn-in look, you're looking for aggregate, you're looking for grip, bite with the tires, you run outside of the corners. We'll see how it plays out today.
Yeah, we'll see who elects to do just that. So here is the starting grid. Don't expect Blake McDonald to take the start. Mamo Gidley was given the Roval Pole Award, so he'll share the front row, we believe, with Ross West, Kyle Washington, and Jason Bell, set to roll off just behind. Then series newcomer Farhan Siddiqui is in the sixth starting position, but at the very back is the championship leader, Justin Rothberg, running as a delegated bronze. His pace this year has dictated that he's carried extra ballast, and for this particular weekend, a grid penalty as well. So he'll start at the back. Watch for him to charge up through the field in the Turner BMW.
Yeah, and I think he's just going to be patient back there. He's got a 25-point lead after sweeping the weekend at VIR over Kyle Washington, who sits in the second position. He's had 3 wins under Kyle's belt, 5 for Rothberg, so they've kind of been the dominant forces so far this year, but maybe this opportunity today with these tricky conditions for someone else to break through and grab their first win of the year.
Yep, could very well be. Mamo Gidley certainly primed for another good run. Ross West has been in good form as of late. We saw that car really quick in the dry, didn't we, in qualifying for GT World Challenge America. It'll be Ross, though, of course, here in this single driver format of GT America. Something different here this weekend. For the first time in series history, it's a single class of cars taking part. No GT4 cars entered this weekend, no GT2 cars entered this weekend, so we can turn our full focus to the SRO3 field, which has been the front-running class, of course, since the series inception. It does change the dynamic of this race, but maybe especially in these conditions, the fact you won't have to deal with the different classes coming on top of one another in the rain with low visibility. That might be a welcome change, at least for one race.
Yeah, it's a small grid, but a very competitive one, so it's going to be a fun race here to watch. And we talk about visibility with the wiper systems, the defogging. Also, the amount of spray, it just kind of hangs in the air, particularly when you come down the moraine sweep. That's the run between turn 3 and turn 5. I relate it to like racing out at the Nürburgring and tracks like that, where it just kind of hangs in the air, doesn't dissipate, and that's what makes it tricky, particularly at the speeds we're going to achieve around here. Even in these conditions, these GT3 cars will touch 160 plus 3 times around this racetrack. So for Rothberg, our championship leader, I'm sure he's going to be pretty cautious here on these opening few corners, at least once we go back to green flag racing.
What are you doing behind the wheel now as a driver, trying to feel out these track conditions, getting ready for the start of the race?
Well, working on the brake bias is the main thing, is to make sure that you got that set correctly. Typically, if you run a dry weather brake bias, you got too much front brake. You've not got the downforce in the wet to deal with that, so you have to wind it a few clicks to the rear axle. So that's one thing I'd also be looking for. Maybe gapping myself a little bit from the traffic up ahead and just having a little run through a corner, have a little feel, so when you actually get up to racing speeds, what is the initial feel like on the racetrack. But I think it's going to be exploration, because the track was resurfaced a couple of years ago, so maybe that will limit how much of a wet line will work around here. But you got guys like Gidley with a ton of experience up front. He may be the guinea pig, or the rabbit, so to speak, in terms of being out front and kind of dictating the line to some of the other drivers.
Well, and if you're someone like Ron Stress, Kyle Busch, and Jason Bell, yes, they've been at this for a handful of years now, but nowhere near the experience of a Memo Gidley. That's exactly who you want to be out front and to be the guinea pig, because he knows exactly how to approach these types of situations.
Yeah, and he's going to be looking. They didn't start the season, of course, came in, but they've done the last 6 races, 3 events. They've had a win and 4 podiums there. So to your point, Ryan, maybe a new winner here today. Gidley's got to be the favorite.
He'll lead the field to green, waiting to hear whether or not the green flag will be coming up this time by. As you can see, and as we've mentioned, the clock has already begun to tick down as the cars left the pit lane. That was exactly what we anticipated happening. Reports are that there'll be at least one more safety car lap. Double yellow still displayed at the top of the hill, so they'll let the field take one more trip around this 14-turn, 4-mile facility here at Road America to get a grip on the conditions as they stand before we turn the cars loose. That's not great news, though, for Justin Rothberg, who, again, has to start at the back of the field here today. And you'd think he would want every minute possible to try and make his way up through the field and secure the best result he can.
Yeah, you would think so, but as we mentioned, relatively light field, so I think being cautious is the first priority. You score points this year as soon as you've completed the formation laps, which there wasn't any, so it was essentially just leaving pit lane. Today you're going to put points on the board, so that's the first box has been ticked. But as you said, prepping the car, I think right now I'd be, even in wet conditions, it's really important to get tire temperature, so really work the throttle and the brake together. Weaving around on this sort of circuit with not much grip really doesn't generate much energy, but you can certainly do it through the brake pedal, getting that heat through the braking system into the upright, up into the wheel itself, and that heats the tire from the inside versus surface temperature.
You mentioned the repave. That was completed in October 2022. One of the focus points of that repave was actually to improve the drainage around the circuit, upgrading features that cross beneath the racing surface as well. So hopefully that pays some dividends for us. Another report from Race Control. The expectation is one additional safety car lap after this one. These are lengthy safety car laps, so time quickly ticking away in what is already a very short race, just 40 minutes. Sprint format, single driver in GT America, powered by AWS. I'm won't leave a whole lot of time for those that are brewing a poor qualifying effort or have incurred a penalty to make their way back up through the field.
Yeah, you can see there's a lot of water on this racetrack, so just by circulating around, it'll certainly clear the racing line just that little bit. But also, more importantly, I think giving the drivers an extra lap to just get a feel for the conditions and what sort of grip they got underneath their race car.
Season started back in the spring. A couple of races at Sonoma Raceway, then a trip to Long Beach and famous street course. Always a fun stop on the calendar. Circuit of the Americas was up next, then Sebring in Florida, VIR last month. The most recent stop on the calendar now here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama coming up next, followed by the season finale at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the famed Brickyard. Pair of races there to settle the championship in GT America. Changes coming next year, Calvin, with the addition to the regulations, allowing some of the single-make Cup cars, what's called, whether you're talking about a Carrera Cup Porsche 911 or a Lamborghini Super Trofeo car, Ferrari Challenge, any number of these single-make championships that have high-performing, high-level cars that take part, those cars will be welcomed to the fold next year, and it's expected to really see an uptake in interest in GT America with a different kind of playground for those that already own that type of machinery.
Yeah, really positive news that we heard this week about that, and the layout of the spin there for Jason Bell. Did he touch anything?
Yes, I thought he did. Maybe not. We'll soon find out. Jason was set to start.
I always found that one of the trickiest parts on this racetrack when grip was low, just coming off that corner. In the old days, it was kind of paved in lanes. You had 3 lanes, and as you transitioned across that, it was like the grip left to right coming through there was a little bit different. So this is the reason that they're giving these drivers a little bit extra time to get used to the conditions, and I would suggest that Jason just got a little too aggressive there on the power coming up towards Billy Mitchell.
I thought I saw contact, but maybe not. Let's take a look back here.
Yeah, left front.
Did just glance off the concrete. All things considered.
Yeah, got lucky.
Could have been a whole lot worse. It's been a rough stretch of races for Jason Bell as of late. Failed to finish each of the races at VIR. That was after turning his attention back to GT America. Former champion in this series in the GT4 ranks 2 times over, 2021 and 2023. Had been running GT World Challenge, but wanted to focus on the shorter races, at least for a few race weekends, with the intention of returning for the Indy 8-hour at the tail end of the season.
Yeah, and I think when you have a car or a driver that's really confident in the dry conditions, the last thing you want is a curveball. And talking to Jason yesterday and last evening, I bumped into him in a restaurant here in town, and he said, I feel good this weekend. This is the best I've felt all year long. Certainly showcased that in qualifying. He's about a second off the pole position, which is probably the closest in terms of the delta that he's been so far this year. But you know, these conditions are totally different, and that's where you've just got to be on your toes and just be really, really careful. That throttle application, these cars have a ton of horsepower. Really got to work with the TC settings, the traction control settings as well, to try and arrest that power a little bit.
And these tires are not warm either. No tire warmers, and that's never been the case in GT America, but now it's true across the board, including in GT World Challenge America. And therefore the tires are still quite cold on these cars, and so that's another thing he's got to work through. But he has caught back up with the tail end of the field. That is a bonus there for Rothberg, who gets one position back even before the race goes officially green flag. But he'll have just under 30 minutes to work with coming up through the field here today.
Yeah, I think for Rothberg, it's really just damage limitation in terms of the points. We know that Kyle Washington is a brave driver, so we're going to be assured that he's going to be up on the wheel. But not a ton of wet weather driving experience for many of the drivers in this field, so they're going to be learning as they go here a little bit.
Well, that's the nature of racing in the rain in any case, right, the track is always evolving, although the rainfall is rather steady right now, so you won't see quite as much evolution, but just the nature of having the cars running on the track will move the water around, it'll displace some of the puddles, and you just don't know what the grip level is until you arrive in the corner.
Yeah, and I think the important thing, a lot of these drivers run in the GT World Challenge America race as well, so they've got co-drives. I'm sure they're on the radio right now, maybe talking them through, maybe coming through this corner, Canada corner, where Jason had his little bobble here. Maybe you need a short shift, get to the longer gear, where it's not so likely to spin up the rear wheels as you're accelerating. Things like that, little tips they can give their drivers before they get ready to go.
Not much longer now. Looks like the safety car has sprinted away and left the field under the control of Memo Gidley. Pole sitter for Ski Autosports in that beautiful Audi, coming to turn 14, trying to get a little bit of heat built up in the tires, starts to accelerate through turn 14 and head up the hill. Ross Schwest giving chase in the Schwest Povolato Racing Chevy Corvette. Then it's Kyle Washington, Farhan Siddiqui, Justin Rothberg, and Jason Bell coming to the green flag. 28 minutes of racing upcoming here at Road America. Race 1 for GT America, powered by AWS.
Yeah, really nicely controlled there, weaving around, then just hit the gas pedal, caught Ross West a little bit unawares. I think Ross went to chase him and had a little bit of understeer going through that final corner. Rothberg up on the wheel, makes the move around Siddiqui.
Farhan's first race weekend in the GT3 car, had made an appearance earlier this season in a GT4 spec car at Sebring. This is an older generation Audi relative to the pole-sitting car. Doesn't have all the Evo kits and things of that nature on it that Memo Gidley has at his disposal, and he's using to great effect to pull away, build that gap over Ross Schwest. Kyle Washington starting to close in on Schwest, and now Rothberg sets his sights on that duo as they plunge down the hill in turn 5.
Yeah, when you're into these downhill corners in these wet conditions, brake bias is super important so easily to overload the front, but that was a little bit of a rear slide, so maybe he's got too much rear bias in that Audi for Siddiqui.
He'll be feeling this out. Not a lot of seat time in this car, and I suspect very little in the wet, but tiptoeing his way around, getting comfortable in the conditions is Farhan Siddiqui, shown back in the 5th spot.
Look at that spray. Everyone just trying to find a clean lane where they're not in the direct line of sight of that spray from the car in front of them. These Pirelli P0s wet weather tires are designed to exhaust that water from underneath the tire and get it out of there. That just sends it to the car that's right behind Washington to the inside. He makes the move.
And Schwest went wide, whether that was by choice, running a rain line, or simply chasing the car out there. That opened the door to the inside, and Washington was able to pounce. He's through to 2nd place. Schwest tiptoeing through the kink. Rothberg following behind. Visibility at a premium here with 3 cars running in close proximity in the run now down to Canada corner once again.
Yeah, Rothberg really didn't want to get in that spray. A very shallow approach to the kink, which certainly compromises your line through there, but he just wanted to see where he was going as the speeds ramp up.
Problems again for Jason Bell. Stopped on track now, starting to pull away once again. That was in the kink.
Yeah. I'll get your attention. You have a moment through there.
No kidding.
The most intimidating corners of all of North America in the dry, let alone the wet.
Right. Gidley crosses the line to complete the 4th lap of the race. 5.5 seconds the gap over this battle. Here's Schwest in the Corvette trying to fend off the charge here by Rothberg, who's come from the back of the pack, makes his way up to the inside and completes that pass down into turn 1 without too much trouble or drama.
Yeah, it's really nice. Certainly the approach full course yellow is out.
And it's Jason Bell. Heavy impact this time, it looks like, with the rear of that machine, and that is the cause for another full course yellow.
Jason obviously really struggling in these conditions there to keep the power to the ground. That's a shame because he was so upbeat about his chances here this weekend.
Again, no shortage of success historically for Jason in GT America. 2 GT4 class championships. little bit earlier in the decade, 2021 and 2023, but today has not been his day. He swipes away that lead for Gidley. It brings Washington back up and also brings Rothberg closer to the lead of the race than he has been all race long.
One thing that happens here, if you're super cautious and you're not really loading the tire at all, it really kind of snowballs in the wrong direction in terms of getting the grip. So for Gidley, his fastest lap is about 4 seconds clear of the field. And once you start to push, you start to get that tire temperature to build, and then you get in grip and you can push even harder. And it just magnifies the gap between someone who's being super cautious and someone who's got the ability and the confidence to push a little bit harder in these conditions.
Well, again, Memo, with so many years racing at a high level behind him, he'll have experienced that so many times. And probably of anybody in this field, he's got the confidence right out of the box to lean on these Pirelli rain tires and not tiptoe quite to the same degree as others that don't have the same level of experience.
That is for sure. That's what we anticipated coming into this race with the laps that he has under his belt compared to some of his amateur competitors. Everyone in this field has to be a bronze-rated driver. Typically means that they have another professional occupation, but there's also drivers like we had Johnny O'Connell last year, and Memo Gidley, who was our champion back in 2023, who are drivers who have stellar resumes behind them, but they're at an age where they get downgraded and consequently can stay in the game.
Yeah, that's right. And Gidley won the championship in this series back in 2023. Fantastic season driving for TKO Motorsports, which has been in the news lately. Picked up a Ford Mustang GT3 with an eye on returning to top-level GT racing here in the States at some point in the not-so-distant future. And you brought Johnny O'Connell up as well. Congratulations are in order to the O'Connell family. Johnny's son, Kanan, who's racing in McLaren Trophy this weekend, just became a father, which means Johnny O is a granddad for the first time.
He is. He's pretty pumped about it. Sat on an airplane with him the other day, away from Atlanta. So this is the same corner he had the spin earlier, but this is obviously a lot later. And you see the severity and the violence of it when you just suddenly lose control and spare off.
Wow.
Not much runoff room there anyway. Wet grass almost feels like it accelerates when you're sitting inside the car.
Yeah, that was a big one. Hope Jason's doing all right after that. Hard into the tire barrier. Good thing the tires are there too to cushion the blow, but even still, you can see the violence of that impact. And see,
Okay, like I talked about, working with the TC, maybe running a higher gear, so when you're accelerating off the corner, you don't get that sudden burst of acceleration like you're in the gear you ideally should be in dry conditions. You want the engine to labor a little bit and just give a slower delivery of the power, which obviously you can work with the TC and everything to help that.
Yep. Well,
once the car gets into yaw, though, it's not a safety net. Once it starts to slide, that's up to the driver and to sort it out.
yeah, tough one there for Jason, and a lot of work ahead of the Racer's Edge crew. They try to get that car repaired in time for the next race of the weekend, which comes your way tomorrow from right here at Road America. The rain continues unabated, although it does look a lot brighter off in the distance. I haven't been able to say that in quite some time. Don't think it's going to be in time to affect this race, but still a busy day on the calendar.
Well, certainly our thoughts are on if we're going to have a new first-time winner this year in Gidley, but also I think the significant fact is that battle between second and third positions between Washington and Rothberg, because they are the championship leaders, with Rothberg having that 25-point lead, which is a full win. You get 25 points for a win. Right now, Kyle has the track position, which would eat in it just marginally. There's only a 3-point delta between second and third place points.
Every point matters. We've seen that in this series over the years. Some of those GT4 battles, the ones that Jason Bell was involved in, were incredibly close. Nip and tuck. SRO 3 was really tight a year ago too. And you pay for it at the end of the year if you let a few points slip through the fingertips.
It was a single point, wasn't it, Johnny, over
Yep.
So Justin at the end of the day? I mean,
Yep. And
Jason Dasklos had the lead
Exactly.
going in and then unfortunately got turned around in the first corner there at Indy. Final event of the season.
Yeah, super competitive championship last year. Going back to the incident with Jason, it was a big impact into the tire barrier. I wonder if any of that needs to be repositioned before we can get back to racing. That car needs to be cleared away as well.
Yeah, we might get a closer look at it here as they're coming up to that area on the racetrack where he went in driver's left here. So this is Billy Mitchell. It used to be a bridge that went over that made the corner, to me, even more difficult, more blind coming up there. Now you got a better sight line through the corner than you did before. You kind of apex just around the bridge on the left-hand side. There you see the work being conducted on screen right.
Yeah, still a lot of cleanup left to be done. And with each lap, there goes another 4 minutes or so off the clock. Race that started behind the safety car, ran 3 laps under the safety car before we were ever able to go green due to the conditions. Had a good couple of laps there. Saw Justin Rothberg charge up as we anticipated. Kyle Washington too, in that e-Boost Porsche you see center of the screen. He had a good strong start to get up to second place and now finds himself right on the heels of the race leader.
Coming into this season, Justin Rothberg didn't drive a race car between the checkered flag at Indy and rocking up to Sonoma versus Kyle Washington, who stayed busy during the off-season, running in other sort of winter series and getting plenty of track time out west. And I think Kyle really picked up the mantle really quickly. Rothberg quickly got in his stride, but we did have that summer break, and during that, Kyle Washington didn't really do much driving. He looks a lot fitter and leaner. He's always been a really strong man, but he looks even fitter and leaner than he was prior to the break. But I felt at VIR like he wasn't back into his groove just yet. So I'm curious to see over this weekend at Barbara and certainly at Indy to finish off the season if he can kind of find that sort of championship contending form that we saw earlier this year.
He was right there, certainly. In fact, he still only has 2 finishes off the podium all season, and especially earlier in the year where the fields were a little bit deeper. He was right there, still on top of his game. Won at Sonoma race 2 to kick the season open with a great start. A couple runner-up finishes at Long Beach. 1 from pole at Circuit of the Americas in race 1. Second at race 2. Had a win in Sebring as well. So 3 wins on the season for Kyle. And up until that VIR weekend, he was right there very much neck and neck with Rothberg for the title, but slipped back a little bit and now has some ground to make up. I believe 25 points coming into the weekend.
Yeah, that's right. A full race win's worth of points, but a long way to go. Still 150 points on the table.
Looking at with upcoming races at Barber Motorsports Park and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Still plenty of time for this championship to be upended. And it's worth noting, too, this car, Mamo Gidley, was not contesting the races in the first handful of weekends of the season. Wasn't at Sonoma, wasn't at Long Beach. And that has the potential to be a fly in the ointment of those championship contenders. They're going to have to deal with Mamo Gidley, who doesn't care about points. He's just here to win races.
Yeah, he's kind of a distant 4th right now, despite not contending the first 4 races of the year. He's 98 points back of the championship lead, which is too big a gap for him to overhaul the likes of Rothberg. So, yeah, it makes him and the team be a bit more aggressive, possibly, take a few more chances, and just go for race victories. They haven't seen it yet, but he's in prime position right now today.
Of course, the team for Mamo Gidley, Ski Auto Sports. We told the story several times that the ski stands for spending the kid's inheritance.
I think that's what your dad's been doing lately.
Well, there's some truth to that, but I don't begrudge him. I don't begrudge him. Dad's been able to do some pretty cool racing as of late. But to the ski story, Kent and Melissa Hussey, the 2 team owners, husband and wife, blissfully spending that inheritance at the racetrack. I actually met one of their children here this weekend, and I said to him, oh, so it's your inheritance that's getting spent. And he kind of had a chuckle about it, and everyone had a good laugh. I think he was just as happy as anybody to see his parents having so much fun at the racetrack once again.
Yeah, they have so much passion for the sport, and running with Phil Crichton and the whole group there, Rosella and Fernando, the engineer there. Just it's a great little team. It was a wonderful unit with Johnny O. Johnny had his neck injury at the end of last year, which means he can return to the seat. They picked up the phone, found Mamo, and he's ready to go again despite missing the 2024 season.
I think Johnny would love to be back in the car, though, one of these days. He still looks fit, still has that fire in him. Been talking with him a little bit here this weekend. He's, of course, watching his son race in McLaren Trophy, but also one of his college buddies, college roommate by the name of John Lennon, is racing in Toyota GR Cup. And he's been kind of helping him along, helping him find motorsport late in life, and had the chance to chat with the pair of them earlier in the weekend. And, I mean, what a great mentor to have, especially a lifelong friend who can help you along and bring the kind of expertise that Johnny O'Connell can bring.
Johnny just loves his racing, doesn't want to give it up. He and I won Formula Atlantic titles in the same year. He ran on the West Coast, I won the East Coast Championship, and he's always been the best. Had such a stellar racing career with Corvette Racing, so many race wins, Le Mans victories, Mr. Sebring, we called him, for his stunning record there. Just top notch. Took a little break, came back, and realized he had to get back in the gym and get fit again, but he certainly got that handled, and now he's up to speed fully, and he's in recovery mode right now. He did tell me that he'd driven a GT4 car recently since his operation on his neck, and it felt pretty good. It wasn't a very bumpy racetrack, so he said, we'll wait and see. I know there's a couple of teams in GT World Challenge America who are talking to him about potentially filling in for the third driver seat at the Indy 8 Hours, which would be fun. But I'd love to see him and Gidley full-time in our AM class. That would be pretty cool.
Sure would. That would be a really fun step, and I know the team has talked about trying to make the jump to GT World Challenge in the future, but you got to make sure everything aligns. It's not easy to go racing at that high level from a financial standpoint, even if you are spending the kid's inheritance. Under 12 minutes to go. Great news. Lights off on the safety car, and the report is the hope is to go green the next time by. Mamo Gidley continues to lead. Then it's Kyle Washington, Justin Rothberg up to third now. Ross West, who started up towards the front, settling back into fourth, and Farhan Siddiqui, who's getting more and more comfortable with the conditions and the car by the minute, maybe even under this yellow flag for someone as relatively inexperienced in the GT3 car as he is. This is pretty valuable stuff. Jason Bell, unfortunately, out of this race. He will not see the finish, and hopefully he and the car will be well enough to take part in race 2 tomorrow.
Yeah, rain is continuing here, so certainly the racing line is not drying much, despite the cars circulating here behind the safety car for a few laps. This is the time where you can't afford to go to sleep. Make sure you're getting those tires prepped as best you can. Make any adjustments to that brake bias that you might have felt in those few green laps that we had accordingly, and see if you're ready for this little 10-minute sprint at the end.
We will soon see who has those tires best prepped for the restart. Field goes through the kink behind the safety car one more time. They'll have just under 10 minutes left to work with when the race does resume. This will be the section of the track that will be the slowest to dry out. You've got the tree cover overhead. It blocks the wind, casts the shadows as well when the sun peeks out. This part of the track gets it last, all the way down to Canada Corner, this next turn up here. And so much elevation change here too, Cal. We talked about it, 171 feet over a single lap, which means you have the potential for water to accumulate at the bottom of some of those hills around the track.
Yeah, you really do. There's just so much nuance. There's so much meat on the bone, as I keep saying this weekend with these corners. There's no throwaway corners. Everyone is challenging, a little bit different, ask for a little bit of something else from the race car and from the driver.
It's about time to go again after the lengthy cleanup for Jason Bell's single car accident It is Memo Gidley out in front looking for a win here today. Gidley through turn 14. Snookered the field on the initial start. This time, though, Kyle Washington's able to keep pace pretty well coming up the hill. Audi leading Porsche, then it's Rothberg in the BMW, Schwest in the Corvette, Siddiqui in the second Audi. That's the field coming to the green flag, racing once again down to turn number 1, and look at the spray kicked off of these leading cars. Memo Gidley showing why it's so important to be out in front, to have the clean windscreen.
Absolutely. You saw Rothberg there, super conservative, coming off of turn 14 and just ran the right-hand side all the way down the racetrack. I wonder if he's having further visibility issues with the windshield. That's really meaning in the spray he's not seeing very well, because he seems to be the driver who's really attempting to get out of that spray and not deal with it at all. If you got two issues going on with the spray and the windshield, that could be why, possibly.
It's also the championship leader, so no reason to take undue risk with a 25-point advantage coming in. You would see that lead trimmed away somewhat by Washington, but it would still be a healthy advantage going into race 2 tomorrow. And a spin, for Washington, off at the bottom of the hill, turn number 5. Wow. That's manna from heaven for Rothberg, who now finds himself in second.
Absolutely. He's going from maybe a little bit of a loss in championship points to gaining right now, but still 7+ minutes to work with here. Anything can happen still.
Washington back through on Siddiqui, but it is Rothberg up to second. Schwest now sits in third. He's looking for a podium result.
Ref Washington just got it wrong by himself. He was a long way back, I thought, from Gidley to be thinking about a move for the lead. Nonetheless, little bobble there in turn 5 for Kyle Washington, keeps it together. Doesn't look like he's hit anything, probably just went straight on maybe in the brake zone.
Able to continue on, but it is treacherous, as we've said, and as has been demonstrated a few times already in this race. Rothberg again. He's has a big accident out of the kink.
Wow. He ran the right-hand side of the road. I think he had all the cornering load. He fell out of the race car, accelerates, just turns around on him.
And immediately full course yellow, heavy nose first impact for the points leader, Justin Rothberg. Washington is shown around Schwest. Whether that happened before the yellow or not remains to be seen, but we go yellow once again, and with under 7 minutes remaining, it looks unlikely that this race will resume. Memo Gidley comes around with the lead of the race, and that would promote Washington back to second on a tumultuous ninth lap of the race here at Road America.
Yeah, I'm really, with Justin, I've really been watching his lines. You know, we saw the initial start, tight out of the last corner, right-hand side of the road, approached the kink, right-hand side of the road. As he came out of the kink, moved over to the right, that's where he lost it. So I wonder if he's got more visibility issues where he's not seeing the track quite right and he's just trying to be safe, and it just caught him out.
Wow. Well, he drops down to 5th, and that could have points implications, but first and foremost, we hope Justin is all right. That was a heavy accident down at the kink, and remember, too, he's due to take part in the GT World Challenge America later on today. Now, hopefully, all is well with Justin Rothberg. Word is white flag the next time by. Gidley looks set to take the win, which I believe Cal would be his second, having won, I think, Sebring Race 1 earlier this year. 3 straight runner-up results after that. Does that look right?
Yeah, you're right. I misspoke earlier. He did have a win, 4 podiums so far in the 6 races. So, yeah, he's not a first-time winner, so I'll take that back from an earlier comment I made. Yeah.
Proof it happens to the best of us. But good season for Gidley and for the ski team. Tough one here today. This has been a challenging race, challenging afternoon with the weather that's come through. But not a surprise to see the cream rise to the top and all the experience that Memo Gidley brings to bear to be able to maximize the car under these conditions. And maybe also goes to show just how important starting track position is, to be out in front and not have to drive through all that spray.
Just communicated with Robbie Foley, who was on the radio with Justin, and said he basically just hit a puddle. So maybe he's exploring a part of the racetrack that he hadn't been on before and just got caught out. And he was having visibility issues, which I'm sure everyone didn't have a perfectly clear screen either.
Schwest now back around Washington, so perhaps that move had not yet been completed. There is Rothberg walking to the medical vehicle, and the SRO medical staff, as good as it gets in the business, looking after him, but really happy to see Justin is walking under his own power. Another look at it. Very shallow approach,
yeah, shallow
but we've seen
there.
that from him a few
times. Yeah, we
times.
have, which is a little bit bizarre because I'm not sure. And then he immediately moves over to the right-hand side right there and just lights up, maybe on the right-hand side. See a little bit of standing water possibly that maybe spun up that right rear tire.
Wow. You mentioned it earlier, that corner as intimidating as they come, even in the best of conditions, and with so much water around the track, these are not the best of conditions. Track crew with a lot of work to do to pick up some secondhand BMW parts and also assess the status of the concrete wall on the outside there too.
Yeah.
So there was a big impact.
Well, a couple of big decisions for Turner now. Is that car repairable, and do they elect to risk running their GT World Challenge America car in the GT America race tomorrow morning? They're leading that championship as well, so lots of decisions to be made potentially if they can't get that car back to 100%.
Yeah, and of course Justin will be checked out by the medical staff. We'll await word. Hopefully he'll be cleared to race later today in GT World Challenge America when conditions figure to be somewhat improved. It's rain forecasted to be in the area for the foreseeable future, but it should be lessening. And again, off in the distance where the weather comes from, it does look as clear as it has in several hours. So that is hopeful news from a forecast perspective. We're under 2 minutes to go, so it will be the white flag here this time by for Memo Gidley. Now, you can't take anything for granted, as we've seen. We've had some spins behind the safety car already in this race, so you can't give him the win just yet.
I wouldn't want to face Rosella if you lose this on the lap behind the safety car. That's his engineer, Memo's engineer. I'm teasing, but yeah, it's good to see them get their second victory of the season, if he can just bring it home here for this last lap behind the safety car.
For Schwest, I believe this would be the best result of the season in second place. I see a couple of thirds previously this year. Comes into the weekend 96 points out of the championship lead. So this inches him a little bit closer, but really for Ross, this is a learning experience here, gathering data for the GT World Challenge program and just continuing that evolution. He doesn't have a whole lot on the CV in GT3 cars, so each lap, each new situation, a learning opportunity.
And they are learning quick. I mean, they've put in some really impressive runs here of late with that car in GT World Challenge America. They look pretty pacey here this weekend. His teammate Aaron put in a really solid run in qualifying this morning, so getting to grips with it. Small team that are doing great things.
Impressive what they built in a short amount of time, doing it down in the New Orleans, Louisiana area.
Looks like they're sitting a flatbed around to try and get over to there.
Not necessarily known as a hotbed of sports car racing, and that's something Aaron Povolato has talked to me about when it comes to staffing the team. When you're not in Charlotte or Indianapolis or Atlanta, where so many of these teams are based, sometimes it's difficult to find mechanics with racing experience at a high level, and you're needing to find those that are willing to relocate and things like that. But it's a good little group they put together, and you're right.
Take them out to dinner, maybe. Maybe you could convince them to move.
Oh, I'd be it, no question. I love going to New Orleans for the food. Amazing place.
Siddiqui did a good job there to keep it together.
Yeah,
he said doesn't have as much experience aboard one of these sort of machines. Had that little moment under braking, which he controlled really nicely. You saw that rear slide that he had, and just kept it clean.
On a day when others faltered, that's no small feat. You were talking about Rosella. There she is with a smile on her face. One of the most respected engineers in the paddock.
I'd respect her a lot more if she could convince Phil, her partner, to get rid of this impression they have. Life-size cardboard cutout with me with a cowboy hat on.
No.
That continues to do the rounds.
Yeah. They've had that for several years, decades
just
even.
Sits in the briefing room, I understand.
I think we had it out, didn't we, at Indy last year? It got some screen time, so maybe...
They threatened to take it to the banquet.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen, thank goodness.
There's always next year, which is this year, so we'll see what we could do. And they'll have plenty to celebrate here today. Great effort by the team, by Memo Gidley. We'll see what tomorrow looks like in drastically different conditions. Hey, the grid for race 2 is set by fastest time in race 1. So Gidley would provisionally have the pole. Second would be...
Jason Bell, if he...
No,
sorry. Misspoke there. He crashed without running lap. It was a 329. I thought it was a 2.
Right. So Washington?
Yeah, Washington
would be second. Schwest third. Siddiqui would be fourth. And Rothberg would be in fifth as the checkered flag waves on race number 1. It's Memo Gidley for the second time this season, picking up the victory for Ski Autosports. Ross Schwest crosses the line in second, his best result of the season. Kyle Washington completes the podium in third, I think. Siddiqui, on timing and scoring, is shown as having crossed. Now Washington pops back up. He had some transponder issues, so I didn't want to say anything definitively, but it's been a strange race, so who knows? But Washington does complete the podium in third, ahead of Siddiqui in fourth.
We thought it would be a question of survival, and certainly Gidley did that best. Nice measured approach to it. See him be getting the power down well. That fast lap, some 4 seconds clear of the competition, indicated how much he was in control of this race.
Yeah, he was. I do wonder what things will look like should we have dry conditions tomorrow, though. This Corvette, across multiple series, different teams as well, has been fast this weekend. Good package. Porsche's been quick, too.
To try and do this.
Can't count
we finally had the
Washington or Schwest out.
So here's the unofficial results.
In the second race of the weekend.
Sports Ross Schwest comes home second, the number 50. Kyle Washington has been scored in third.
Let's take a look at provisional race results from race number 1. It was Mabel Gidley over Schwest and Washington. Siddiqui, the last running car at the checkered flag. Rothberg had the big incident that brought out the yellow that we ended under. And Jason Bell in 6th place had his issues. Blake McDonald, despite setting the fastest lap in qualifying, electing not to start here in GT America. His focus is on GT World Challenge, where his teammate Matt Bell has been amongst the fastest drivers here all weekend long. So we've got a lot to look forward to in that race later on today. Well, the race started behind the safety car. Inclement weather delayed the start of the race and then delayed the green flag. Even before we saw the green flag, it was the first of a couple of issues, unfortunately, for Jason Bell today. Went for a spin, was able to catch back up to the field and take his position at the tail of the field following the spin, coming to the green. Memo Gidley from pole position led the field away. Schwest was second. Siddiqui with a moment at the bottom of the hill in turn 5, but was able to gather it back up. Safety car came back out. The rain continued to fall. Safety car was for an incident involving Jason Bell. Once that was cleaned up, with about 10 minutes to go, it got back to green flag racing, and it was Justin Rothberg trying to charge his way back through the field, but his charge was blunted with his incident in the Keek, bringing out the final yellow of the race. And now the field just making its way back around one more time. Memo Gidley headed to a victory lane to celebrate.
Big question, of course, is can either of those race cars that suffered a significant amount of damage be repaired overnight to make the start for tomorrow's race? Certainly spare cars could come into play a little bit, particularly in Rothberg's situation. But they're two pretty heavy hits.
No question about it. One into a tire barrier, one into a concrete wall, but in both cases, those are torn up race cars. We understand that the podium celebration for today's race won't happen until tomorrow, so not sure who, if anyone, will be able to chat to post-race. But, yeah, everybody trying to get this schedule back on track with the weather that rolled through and all the lightning, too, that put us in a bit of a delay and a holding pattern earlier in the afternoon. Still several races to come here at Road America this afternoon. Toyota GR Cup up next. Then it's GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS Race 1. And capping things off with Pirelli GT4 America for the final race of the day. Well, Memo Gidley, for the second time, reigns supreme here in the rain at Road America. Second win of the season for Gidley and Ski Autosports. We'll be back again tomorrow for the second race of the weekend. Hope you join us for that. For DJ and Cal, I'm Ryan. So long from Elkhart Lake.